Good day and welcome to today's Vivit leader training. We're still waiting for some people to dive into this session, so bear with me for a minute, and in about a minute or so we will start. Thank you again for joining. Thank you again for joining. I see the attendee number going up. That's great. That's terrific. We will start in half a minute or so. Thank you very much for joining. Attendee list is still going up. Great. We will start in 26 seconds. Thank you very much for joining. Good day and welcome to today's Vivit leader training, Leader for Leader training session. I will now start this training session. Welcome again. Could you hit the next slide, please, Mark? Today's training is hosted by myself, Martijn Stuyver, Vivit Director for the chapters and special interest groups, and also prepared together with my colleague Laura Walker, a Vivit Director for Education, and also a well-known Vivit leader in the US area. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank Mark Herbert and Scott Anderson for spending time with us today, sharing their best practices and experiences as chapter leaders and event coordinators. I appreciate the time and effort you both take to prepare and conduct this presentation. Great, guys. Thank you. But before we start, I first need to take 10 minutes for some housekeeping and some Vivit announcements. So bear with me for 10 minutes to be able to explain you the housekeeping items and some interesting Vivit activities. First of all, today's live session is intended for all Vivit leaders, and the recording will be posted on the Vivit website in the Chapter and 6 area, and well known as the Chapter and Special Interest Group Leader page. Today's slide deck and webinar recording will be made available to you, and we will send you also the link via email once they are posted to the Vivit website for you to review afterwards. If you have any questions as we go along, please type and send those questions in using the questions pane in the webinar control panel, and later on we will also open up the channels for some real life Q&A. Next slide, please. Just to remind you again on how to address your questions, here is a picture of the well-known GoToWebinar control panel that usually appears in the upper right-hand corner of your screen. To submit a question, make sure the questions pane is expanded and type in your question and click on send. And we will try to address your question at the end of every session. Before we move to the actual training and related discussions with Mark and Scott, I want to take this opportunity to quickly point out some interesting activities which you should mark onto your calendar. And after I've finished with those activities and interesting stuff to go after, I will hand over to Mark, and the last presenter of today will be Scott. Okay, thank you very much. Here are some Vivit updates. As you know, it's very important for us that you update your profile on a temporary basis. It's very good for our strategy, but especially to point out where the different chapters are located and how well they are visited. So we can build our strategy based on this kind of information. And please help to get this word out to your chapter and SIG members to update and complete all of their required fields in their profiles. And they will automatically be entered into the prize drawing, and there's still one prize drawing in front of us on May the 1st to win a Real Beats by Dr. Dre solo. The ones who already did earn this great pair of audio beats were Marie from Sweden, who won on March 1st, and Michael from Sweden, who won the April 1st drawing. So there's still one drawing left. And I want to point out and make sure that because of Vivit's strict policies around information sharing, you can rest and trust us and and be assured that this information is only used to help us better provide services, and also to point out and align with our strategy. We do not share this kind of profile information with other vendors or with HP without your explicit permission. Another update I want to provide you is, of course, our next big event, which is Discover 2013 in Las Vegas again, June 11th to June 13th. Spring is arriving slowly, but June is approaching fast, so it's good to point this out to you. If you have not already registered for HP Discover in Las Vegas, register today, and you will be earning a $300 discount if you use the promo code Vivit. In addition, 5 individuals who enter the code Vivit with the registration for the HP Discover will be entered into a special drawing to win a free pass to this HP Discover event next year in 2014. This offer can be combined with other codes or discounts, so make sure that's not eligible for you. And we also appreciate if you as a leader would be pointing out this kind of information also to your group members by means of the web pages or your email messaging or your other social media channels you use for your events. Also related to the HP Discover is the Vivit Advanced Training. Well known, and it's most of the time organized before the event. And also this year it's possible for you and your members to enhance your experiences by means of 10 courses. You can choose from 10 courses to hear some real-world experts talking about their experiences and examples based on real-life practitioner experience with HP software tools. Of course, it's also a great opportunity not only to advance your career, but also to network with other attendees. The following 10 courses are available. So there's a lot of cool stuff here from the functional testing, ALM side, data protection side, business service management, mobile application development, and mobile performance testing. Also related to service management at Universal CMDB, there will be some interesting sessions available. And the cost per training course is only $99. Thanks to our sponsors. So that was a great effort that we have some sponsors there who help us out with this kind of training. So only $99 for this training, as well as for Vivit, which is a good course anyhow. This is in total of $400 savings of the normal fee. And of course a Vivit Advanced Training course can be added to your new or existing HP Discover conference registration account when you are in the process of registration. If you have any questions, just contact us about this training session, and especially you can contact Laura Walker, who is responsible for this great education program this year. It would also be great if you could share this information again with your chapter and special interest groups members. Also related to this event, of course, is the award presentation for the Americas, based on the Leader of the Year Award, the Champion of the Year Award, and the Speaker of the Year Award. For those who did not nominate anyone yet, it's still possible to nominate someone in the coming 3 days. The nomination will close at April 22nd. 26th, I'm sorry, about the Leader of the Year, which is very interesting and eligible for those who organize interesting events as a local chapter leader as well as a special interest group leader. The Champion of the Year, of course, responsible of growing Vivit in the HP software ecosystem. Could be HP employees, partners, clients, consultants, or other parties supporting Vivit in this area. And last but not least, of course, the Speaker of the Year Award, which is for those outstanding presentations which you organized or which you attended at your own events or at other events. So please nominate those people before April 26th. Last but not least, some other last things to mark in your calendar. Besides the HP Discover registration and the advanced training sessions and the Leader Awards, we also have upcoming the elections for new Vivit board members. So a couple of directors will leave the board, and pretty soon you will be receiving a message to nominate possible people to join the board. So there also are already some candidates available, and the only thing you have to do in April and a part of May is voting for the right people on the board, or at least for the people you think will be representing Vivit the best way as they can. Last but not least, the next chapter and special interest group leader meeting is scheduled for May 14th. So please mark your calendar, and we will meet up again at May 14th for more information from also the strategic and operational side of Vivit. Well, I would now like to introduce a little bit more to you Mark Herbert and Scott Anderson. Mark Herbert is Arizona chapter leader and was Leader of the Year at Vivit for the Americas in 2012. Mark is a software quality engineer leader with over more than 20 years IT experience, including 13 years as a software quality engineer specializing in test automation. He works with Dignity Health as the Quality Center technical lead. And also with us, and he will provide some in-depth information on his events, is Scott Anderson. He is operating as a leader at the Iowa chapter for more than 5 years now, and he was able to expand his group together with his co-leaders. He works as a senior automation engineer at Aviva and brings more than 13 years of quality assurance and testing expertise on the table. So it's really great that you both, Mark and Scott, are today with us to speak about your experiences in getting people to your events and organizing your events. So Mark, could you please fill us in on your chapter and event approach? And hopefully we will all learn about the best practices both Mark and Scott uses.
Yes. Hi. Thank you. Thanks for giving me the opportunity to speak, folks. For those of you that I've not yet met in person, I'm Mark Herbert. I've been involved with Vivit, well, actually going back earlier than that, of course, Mercury user groups, for those that come from the Mercury side that remember those. I started the one back in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania when I was residing there in 2006. And then when I came here to Arizona in 2008, got involved with the chapter out here, and have been with that ever since. So I'll do the best I can to convey how things work for us. We've been meeting quarterly, You know, again, since I've arrived here in 2008 and gotten involved with the chapter out here in Arizona. And although I come from the quality side with, you know, Quality Center or ALM as it is now, and the functional testing tools and load runner and such, we also have a fair amount of membership that come that use other HP solutions, such as the monitoring, you know, and the application side software. So we do our best to kind of mix up the topics and get a bunch of people involved, as you'll see here over the next few minutes as I communicate how we run our chapter out here. So I'm going to basically talk you through the process of how I prepare for a meeting. Some of this may not be, you know, new information to you, but just to give you an idea of how it goes for us. I would say on average we have about 25 or 30 people that show up fairly regularly. Our chapter is larger than that, but we seem to get a consistent turnout of that. It really depends on the topics and folks' personal schedules, but nonetheless, the first thing I tend to do when preparing for a chapter meeting is go back and look at feedback received from previous meetings, starting with the most recent and even back a little further than that if necessary, to look for what topics folks are interested in, what solutions are they using, what problems are they wrestling with those solutions from HP that they might want some more insight about. You know, whether it be from the feedback forms that I give out at the chapter meetings themselves or emails that come in between meetings, or I also use our forum capabilities on our chapter website to my advantage to post, you know, discussion topic there and ask people to leave feedback. And I also, in addition to those things, you know, look at our own HP, in addition to looking at our own forums, look at the HP community forums, the HP software-related discussion groups on things like LinkedIn and some other sites that I'm, you know, aware of. So I try to go about gathering a list of topics and then take those back to the user community, which brings us to our next step, reaching out. So once I have a general idea of some of the topics folks are interested in, I go back basically to the chapter and I say, look, you know, we want our next meeting's coming up for the next quarter. Here's some of the feedback received. What do you think? Is there any other topics? You know, and then try to narrow down the list from there. I also encourage folks to get involved from the chapter, because I don't know how it works for you all, but I know for what I've seen over the years that's very successful and very well received are presentations by the chapter members themselves, folks that are actually using these tools and these solutions day to day, sharing their knowledge with each other and doing the presenting. Not that anyone minds the presentations from HP partners or other vendors and that type of thing. Those are well received too, but I definitely try to encourage the chapter members to get involved and share their knowledge. It's always a home run when the chapter members themselves get involved. Just like, you know, for those of you that have kids, sometimes your kids learn better from, you know, their peers. They don't always, they kind of tune out their parents when they get to a certain age. So that could be a good thing or a bad thing, but, you know, nonetheless, having our peers kind of teach us what they know and show us is always a big thing. The other thing I tend to do at this point is also reach out to anybody and everybody that I have contact with. In the HP community, that would be our marketing and sales reps here in Arizona, or that are responsible for covering Arizona, to make them aware of our upcoming event, see what kind of assistance they can lend. They're always willing to give a hand. Also, HP partner companies, knowing who your partner companies are that service your area or that you just know in general. I have relationships going back to my days working for at the time, Mercury partner company that I maintain today, and I have some of those folks come out and help at our chapter events once in a while, even though geographically they're not located here. They are experts in these tool sets and these solutions, so they're happy to come help us out on occasion as well. But certainly knowing who your HP local reps are, marketing and sales engineers and so forth, as well as your local partner companies, is always going to be helpful as it pertains to coordinating your meeting. Once I've kind of reached out to both the chapter as well as the HP themselves and the partner companies to make them aware of our upcoming event, then I start, digging a little deeper and first establishing a sponsor company, because as you all know, this is a nonprofit organization, and there's, it requires sponsorship or donation, or if you will, to help provide, whether it be the venue or refreshments or whatever other things are necessary to make your meeting run. So sometimes there's local companies that will sponsor our events. Sometimes the HP partner companies will sponsor our events and help fund whatever expenses are necessary to put on the chapter event. Sometimes HP themselves will offer to do certain things or give certain items to contribute to the event. So establishing that sponsor company is important. Now, in our case, what's worked well for us is, in exchange for sponsorship, the sponsor is given the floor at the outset of the meeting, say for 5 or 10 minutes, to speak about their business or their service offerings or whatever the situation may be, to make the membership aware of who they are and what they can provide in exchange for that sponsorship. It's a win-win situation that seems to work well for us. They help fund our event, and they get to network with our membership. Once I have a line on who can help sponsor our event, sometimes it ends up being the same person, or sometimes it's a different organization. We establish a venue. I've not yet, in my experience, have had to rent anywhere, so knock on wood, that's been successful. Most of the time what ends up happening is one of the member companies in the area opens up their offices to us to have their meeting there. Most recently it was Blood Systems here in Arizona, which is a company that's involved with blood donations and such. Other companies in the area, Discount Tire previously, Apollo Group, other places of that nature here in the local area in Arizona have opened their doors to allow us to hold our meetings there. So that seems to work well. And again, they are given the opportunity at the beginning of the meeting to elaborate on what their company does, and I encourage that, because I also ask them to kind of share what HP solutions their company uses and to give a little overview on their experiences and that kind of thing. So that always helps and is well received also, is to have the member companies provide the venue and then share a little bit about what they do with the HP solutions. I mentioned this a little bit, but now once I know, okay, we're covered with a venue, we have funding for the meeting through a sponsor, let's, again, identify the presentation topics and line up the presenters. And as I mentioned previously, I love to get the customer-driven or member-driven presentations. Those are always a big hit with the audience. But again, I'm not opposed to, and it's also well received to get HP partner companies or HP themselves or other experts with these solutions or integrations with other third-party tools to come out and kind of share what they've done and what they can do and what they can provide. So depending on the topic and where the expertise lies is how we arrange our presentations. And again, the more I can draw from the membership community to share their expertise is what I try to do as a first step, and then bring in other folks like HP partner companies and so forth from there to share their experiences and to drive the presentation. As far as promoting the event, it's pretty much more of the same. I mean, leveraging your chapter website and the email capabilities, email blast capabilities from your chapter website. Definitely letting your local HP representatives know that you have an upcoming meeting and encouraging them to share with their customers who may or may not yet be Vivit members that we have an event coming up. You know, other places where Vivit has a footprint in social media, you know, whether it be on LinkedIn or something of that nature, kind of letting that be known there as well. You know, just getting the word out, and as far out in advance as possible, and sending, you know, maybe weekly reminders up to the week before the event, and going from there. And so that's how we end up getting the word out, and it seems to work pretty well so far. And then once the actual meeting takes place, again, I didn't put a slide in here to this, but just to verbalize, doing your due diligence after the meeting, you know, following up with your members, asking for feedback, talking to them about what they'd like to see at future meetings, and continuing to build relationships with the HP user community in your area, as well as the HP reps themselves and the partner companies themselves and other folks that you think can help you moving forward. And just maintaining those relationships has basically been our formula for success to this point. So other than that, I again appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys today. If anybody has any questions, I'm more than happy to address those, or afterwards, if you happen to think of one later today or another day and want to get a hold of me, you know, my email is here. You're free to reach out to me at any point. But yeah, any questions? I'll take that as a no.
Mark, I don't see any questions. Oh, wait, here's one. Hold on. Martine, are you coming in?
Yes, I am. Mark, I've got one question. You did line out some good practices. Are there also some don'ts? So let's say, what did you learn not to do organizing events?
What did I learn not to do? That's a good question. I would say one of the things that I've found to be challenging is I guess it involves getting the commitments. I've unfortunately had a couple of situations where somebody committed to present and then backed out. So you definitely want to have a backup plan, if you will. And I probably should have mentioned this in the slide deck, but that's a good question. So always make sure that if you have your regular meetings leading up to your chapter meeting with all the folks involved, your sponsor, your host company, if it's not the same group, and go over all the logistics, and your presenters, and make sure they're definitely committed and are going to deliver, because short of an emergency, and those happen, you want to have a fallback plan. So I know I carry like a presentation in my back pocket. It might sound funny, but if something were to happen and I had to scramble to fill in a time slot because a presentation or a presenter couldn't deliver at the last minute, I'm able to just spin something up and go. It's just some test automation related stuff that from my experiences over the years that I can speak to. So have a backup plan. Don't, assume everything's going to go smoothly, because sometimes it doesn't, and you just have to be prepared to adapt to the sudden change. So yeah, it's a good question.
And I would say, Mark, that's a pretty good answer. Let's see, it's very helpful. Well, thank you very much, Mark.
Okay, good. No, thank you guys. I appreciate, again, the opportunity. And if you think of anything or need any help moving forward, definitely don't hesitate to reach out to me. Thank you.
Well, we'll be handing over to Scott Anderson then. He will talk you through different ways to spice up your meetings by means of driving some partnerships. Are you there, Scott?
Yep, I'm here. Just give me a second to, I'm just going to share my monitor. You want to let me know when you can see that?
Yes, I can see your slides.
Okay,
Great.
Okay, so my name is Scott Anderson. I've been one of the Vivit leaders here in the Iowa chapter for about 5 years. We have usually, in the range of 10 to 20 people show up for our meetings. But what we found can really boost attendance is when we partner with other groups. What do you get with partnering with other local user groups? You get additional topics and speakers. You can increase attendance. For instance, we saw about a 300% increase for our Agile meeting. We had, like I said, we usually get 15 to 20 people. We actually had 70 people in person for our Agile meeting, and we had 20 people over the GoToMeeting option. I saw a question about whether people use the GoToMeeting. It's definitely something that we have used, and it's been pretty successful. I think Laura Walker, by the way, has a really good presentation on how to do a successful GoToMeeting. So that would be another good thing. I would also say that it's a good way to get new members. We had about 15 new people sign up for our user group when we started advertising this across the different local user groups. So that's definitely another benefit. So what's the process that we go through? First, you start out, you determine an initial topic with broad appeal. So for instance, we've done security, agile software development, requirements management, and then I do a Google search for other groups. For instance, Quality Assurance Association, Agile User Group, and those are for the Iowa area. And then send out introductions to other leaders early and have a leader meeting to decide on the topics. And what we usually ended up doing was we'd have one tool-specific thing for HP. For the Agile group, we had HP's new Agile tool offering. And then we had a tool-agnostic presentation on Agile test automation. The other thing we used was we used a Google spreadsheet for registering users from other groups. That worked out really well because not everybody wants to use Vivit's login mechanism and registration. And so then if you use a Google spreadsheet, you can have everybody else sign up. Have each group send out the notifications because then, it's coming from the Des Moines Area QA Association or the Agile User Group. You're going to get better response from their users if it comes from them. And then hold the meeting. One of the things in the past that I've had a problem with was getting some of the leaders to actually respond to me, just because we're in the age of everyone gets 1,000 emails every day, and so it can be difficult. And so what I did was when I had trouble getting some of the leaders to respond, I would look and see what their host company was. For instance, we have a lot of people from the Principal Financial Group here, and so then I looked at some of the users from Principal for the Vivit user group and said, hey, can you get a hold of Sarah for me? Sarah's the leader of the QA Association group, and she might not be responding to my emails. Sometimes having someone within the company send them a message can get you a better response. But in general, we've had a really enthusiastic response because everybody's looking for new topics and and ways to branch things out. So from a group dynamics perspective, group dynamics often overlap. So you want to make sure that you coordinate with other groups while also protecting the integrity of the Vivit group. So you just want to think about what they do. Agile Iowa focuses on agile processes. DACA is the Des Moines Area QA Association, and they focus on QA in general. And then the Vivit Iowa chapter focuses on just the HP quality assurance products. From a meeting overview, what we found worked well was we did an introduction from each user group. So basically I got up and talked and said, hey, I run the local Vivit user group. Here's what's great about us. The local QA Association user group person got up and said, hey, here's what I do. And then we had another person for Agile. One of the other things I try and do with those is point out, say, hey, this person is really good at performance testing. And so if you're interested in maybe talking to somebody about performance testing, I'd really recommend, you go to this person. And this person over here is really good with HP's Quality Center. So if you guys have questions about implementing, they might be a good person to talk to. Then we did a tool-specific presentation. In our case, it was the HP Agile tool. We had a break in networking, so we had 15 or 20 minutes, and people seemed to really spend time, enjoying that and getting to know each other. As one of the Vivit leaders, I tried to make it a point to get in to introduce myself to as many people as possible from the other groups and see if there were any problems or things that they were trying to work on that I could help solve. Then we had a tool-agnostic presentation. In our case, again, it was Agile automation. And then I think we also had a couple of handouts from vendors, or we had some books that people could give away. From a collaboration and follow-up, you want to meet and discuss the event afterwards. It might be a good idea to schedule some informal get-together with the leaders of other groups for lunch or a few drinks to explore future opportunities. And doing this could allow all of the groups to target upcoming changes in the industry and relay them in a more coordinated way to get information out sooner. Just a couple of topics that have worked well for us is security. And what this was, we had HP present on their security suite, and then we had a security guy that presented at the HP conference about integrating QA into a secure development lifecycle. And so that was our tool agnostic. And then test automation, again, we did the Agile, HP's Agile tool, and then general test automation with Agile. I've also given a metrics and reporting presentation where I show what we get from Quality Center and how we customize it. But the general idea of metrics and reporting is generally well received, and everyone needs to do that. So I kind of ran through that a little quick. So that was, if you have any questions and answers, or questions or answers you want to provide to us, now would be the time.
Yes, thank you very much, Scott. The same question which I also asked Mark. What are the don'ts, or what did you learn not to do?
Well, I mean, getting coordinated with the other groups is it can be a little challenging. They've got their own, like one of the groups had a monthly meeting, and they agreed, yeah, we'll have your meeting, and it turned out it was only a week after one of their big meetings. So we thought, well, that's going to cause problems for turnout. So we rescheduled. So I would make sure that one of the things we try and do is, we schedule these meetings at least 3 months out ahead of time. And so, just to understand, what are the other things that these other groups have going on, and how can you make sure not to, step on each other's toes as far as how the meetings get organized and go.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you very much. We did receive some questions, which are quite interesting. First of all, I would like to address some questions which were asked just after you finished, Mark. But please, Scott, also fill in when you feel it is, let's say, a good tip and trick from your side. I've got a question from Mark Ford. He asks, do you use any audio-video conferencing with chapter meetings? If not, have you considered doing so?
Yeah, we definitely use the GoToMeeting, and it's helped. I mean, usually we only get 4 or 5 extra people on, but for our Agile group, we probably had 20. People really appreciated that, but that can be, just make sure you prepare for it. A couple of things, tips and tricks for that is you would want to make sure that you have someone actually monitoring the GoToMeeting on a separate computer to look for questions, because I can tell you as the presenter, you're worried about doing your presentation. You're not worried about, you're going to have trouble remembering to look for questions. There's also you'll have people ask questions in the room, and you need to make sure that, and people won't be able to hear them, so you need to make sure that you repeat them for the person on the phone. We've also had issues where we had drop microphones in the room so that basically anybody in the room could talk and be heard, but it caused a lot of white noise. So our plan for next time is to basically get a microphone just for the speaker and just let them use that to cut down on the overall noise.
And I'll say this is Mark, we haven't done a ton of webinar or audio type stuff yet, but it's something we're looking into doing more, although I will say our last meeting back in February, one of the presenters was actually remote, so we had to actually do it there, and that was our first time doing it, and it did go well. But as Scott said, you want to do some trial and error first to make sure all the technical glitches are worked out first. So, but yeah, it's definitely a good tool to take advantage of and potentially get more folks involved.
Okay, sounds like a good direction there. I've got also a good question from Ali. Could you guys point out per event the number of attendees? Do they vary? New versus existing members? How does that work for you?
We found it's varying on our side here in Arizona. It's consistent in number. It seems to be between 25 and 30. If you look over the past couple years at our quarterly events, but it's not always the same faces. It depends on the topics. If it's more operations based, then more of those folks and less of the quality folks will come, versus the other way around. If it's more quality based, maybe a few less of the operations. So it really depends on the topics. As far as new members, yeah, they're sprinkled in there as you go on our side, and then whatever happens there with Scott, go ahead and read.
Yeah, I mean, we have 10 to 20 people show up, and it tends to be actually the same people every time. When we do, one of the things that's helped to get new people is we make sure that our HP reps in the area know about our meetings and help to promote them. And then I make a real concerted effort to, if there's a face I don't know, to go up and talk to them myself and see, what we can do to help.
Okay. Hey guys, and do you both know or have in mind how many Vivit members there are in your local area? So can you compare it, the attendees, with the number of members in your area, or is that not really something you look into?
We have about this is for Iowa. We have about 100 people on the list, I think. So we get 10 to 20% turnout.
Okay. Well, that's quite
Yeah,
good.
I'm in the same boat here in Arizona. There's slightly over 100 registered members, 120 or thereabouts. So, and again, 25 or 30 come out depending on the topics. One of the things, and I didn't mention this earlier, that at least my HP marketing rep has offered to do is to help get me a listing of contacts from their different customer companies. So I'm assuming they'd all be willing to do that across the board if you ask. You know, so then that way you can maybe try to meet and work with the right people to let them know that, you know, our organization exists and here's what we do and here's what how we can help you and that kind of thing. So.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like a great advice. There are some connections in which we are nowadays also, our name or a Vivit name is available in different kind of purchase cycles as well as training cycles, but it still is probably a very good idea also, if you know your local sales rep, to team up with them and make sure that they know or mention Vivit as a good opportunity to share experiences. Okay, another question from Russell. Any suggestions for how to reach out to people in your area who use HP software but are not Vivit members? How do you get in touch with them?
For us, like I've said in my presentation, your biggest ally is getting with HP, getting with their representatives, and getting with their partner companies that service your area and say, hey, how can you help me get word of our group to your customers? Aside from that, and using social media to your advantage. For example, LinkedIn has some HP software related groups out there and kind of spreading the word that way. You know, I haven't gone as far as to do any local advertising in newspapers or other publications and such to this point. I guess that's something I can think about and talk about with others. But the leaning on the HP and their partners and their sales force, their marketing folks, the partner companies, and having them help me get the word out to the customers is good. But I actually thought it was cool what Scott mentioned about reaching out to some of the other user groups that may be not HP specific, but partnering up with them and getting some interest from their folks was a neat strategy. I like that. That was pretty cool.
Okay, great. Another question is, have you ever also, for new exposure, used other channels like meetup.com to help with additional exposure?
I've not tried that one yet, but that's good. I'm going to make note of that one. Meetup.com. No, I've not tried that one, but I'm open to any of that kind of stuff. That's not a bad idea. I'll check that one out.
Yeah, it's coming from Paul Peisner. Thank you, Paul.
I see the one about webinars being recorded. The sound quality can be kind of a pain to do that, honestly. I mean, the sound quality isn't great sometimes. So I've never really seen it where it's that valuable. Because like what we're doing now, it's totally dedicated to being a webinar, and so everyone is on, and you can see, you've got really great sound quality. I don't know how much value we would get out of recording them, honestly.
Could you also point out, guys, how long your meetings take? How much hours do you spend on a meeting?
We typically meet the last Wednesday of the month of, well, again, we meet quarterly, but whatever month in that quarter we're going to meet, it's typically the last Wednesday evening of the month. And folks start arriving at 5:30 p.m. local time, and we usually wrap up somewhere around 8 p.m. We don't actually start the meeting till just before 6. Give folks about 20 to 30 minutes to show up, sign in, get settled in. So I'd say the meeting time itself is a little over 2 hours, and keeping in mind in there that there's about a 15 or 20-minute break where we usually have some kind of light meal, networking types time, with the presentations being before and after that. So that's how we do it so far in Arizona.
Yeah, I mean we do pretty much the same thing. It's like, I don't know, probably 3 hours or so, and the difference is that our user group really likes having it during the day. So we usually actually have it in the afternoon from 1 to 5.
Okay, okay. And do you also have separate parallel sessions, or just one session after the other when you're only talking about 20 or 25 people?
We just have one session. I mean, we've tried to bring in ops people, and we just haven't gotten any real traction with ops. Our user group is very QA focused, so we tried doing a regional user group, and we had something like 90 people show up for QA and 10 for ops. So that's just what our interest level is. So
yeah, our group is I'd say 60% quality based, and then ops is the other 40%. But we like I said, we've tried to mix it up, and in fact, you mentioned Paul a few moments ago, Paul Peisner, and he came out and helped us have an operations-based meeting. I guess it was last August or October, I can't remember. It was sometime later in 2012 over at Apollo Group, and that was very well received. The room was full, and so it really depends on the interest and what the topic is. But it was a good event.
And do you see also now a shift from or a special let's say mark between apps and ops topics? One of you did already mention something about it, but do you see a kind of development on that area in your meetings?
I'd say most of the feedback I've gotten, there's definitely been over the past, say, 6, maybe 8 months, more interest than in past years on some of the operations topics and asking to have those be discussed, or even non-traditional QA type stuff, even if it is still quality in nature, like getting more into, for example, mobile testing and things like that. So yeah, I'd say it's trending slightly towards a different direction, but still, again, the majority of my chapter is a quality-based chapter, so those are still the predominant requests, but there's definitely starting to it's starting to even out a little bit slowly over time.
Okay, another interesting session or question is about the sales reps. How do you point out what the best sales rep is to work with, because they are so differently organized and sometimes different, based in different silos? What are your experiences?
Yeah, I'll talk from my perspective, and Scott may have a different opinion or different experience, but I had, I guess, the benefit, if you will, of, like I said earlier, working for, at the time, a Mercury partner company as a consultant and trainer and so forth, and I've maintained a lot of relationships over the years and continue to build relationships, so I kind of know people. One of the first things I did when I started working more local and got out of the whole traveling consultant type thing is find out who the people are that own the HP solutions in the company that I work for, if it wasn't myself, and find out from them who our sales reps are, get to know them, and then from there get to know who their counterparts are and who their bosses are. And yes, you're right, it's constantly changing. Some of the names you worked with 2 minutes ago might be different 2 minutes later, but you know, nonetheless, some of the same people that I've experienced here in Arizona are the same people I've worked with or gotten to know since moving here in 2008. So for me, it hasn't changed terribly drastically.
Yeah, I would kind of go in with Mark about that you go to the sales rep for your company. They have the most skin in the game for you, so they're most likely to respond to you, and then see how you can branch out from there. That's worked best for us. And then they do change all the time, and it is very frustrating.
Yeah. Okay, this is almost all the question I had until now. Stephanie, you can put up the microphone, or let's say unmute all people, so there's still some availability to also address some live questions. David Hunt also points out the quality of the sound, and that it's very good and sound to discuss and make a decision if you want to do it by a microphone on your PC or with the telephone or even with a special mic. So that's really something to consider and probably also to rehearse about up front. Does anyone have a live question?
To ask a live question, just push the raise your hand button, and then I'll be able to see you and I can unmute you if you'd like to ask a live question. I don't see any so far.
What I can talk about a little bit is that there is another platform which we can use for providing presentations, which is BrightTalk. And if you're looking at, let's say, enlarging your membership, BrightTalk might be interesting to use. In this way, you can also promote your events to a larger community. It could be tied into different kind of channels. We have a Vivit channel, but there are also some channels on BrightTalk available which are topic specific, like agile, cloud, business intelligence, big data, for example, or some interesting operations and testing and quality topics. So it might be interesting also to use BrightTalk. This, at the same time, what an advantage of BrightTalk also will be for you is that the recording is immediately available directly after your presentation, and that you can also track people who did watch your recording after your presentation. So it will not only be available on the Vivit website, but it will be more interactively available on the BrightTalk channel of Vivit, as well as other channels if you would like to promote your presentation to a larger audience. The disadvantage of this tool so far at this moment is that it's not possible to share applications and to share screens. So you have to upload your slide set up front, and then you can perform your presentation. But for those who are, for example, starting with a chapter, which I personally did with the Business Intelligence Special Interest Group, it's a quite good tool to immediately grow your membership, or at least promote your events to a larger audience than only the Vivit members, which are tied into your special interest groups and chapters so far. Any other questions?
I don't see any at the moment, Martijn.
Well, last but not least, it's the top of the hour, so let's close this session. First of all, I would like to thank you for attending this session, and of course this recording will also be available on the website. You will receive a link, Please also mark your calendar and your activity lists based on the votings and the upcoming activities in which we really need your support as well as the support of your members. And last but not least, I really would like to thank Scott and Mark in providing some very interesting insights in how they organize their events and some very interesting tips and tricks. Scott, Mark, thank you very much. I think it was very helpful. At least from my part, it was very helpful also in organizing events for myself in the future. And again, this recording will be available in the future. And please stay tuned for new training sessions and next meeting on May 14th. Thank you very much for attending. And thank you very much, Mark and Scott, again, for presenting your insights. Thank you very much, guys.